More or less one size fits all. So in the two devices, the rehabilitation centre device is quickly adjustable between users. It takes 3 minutes to go from 4'8" to 6'5" in old money. I don't know the new stuff. And so that allows you to cycle through a constant stream of patients in the day. It was an important metric for us because some of the larger mobility devices like Locomat, which is a treadmill with a sort of robotic set of legs over it, it can take about 1 hour and 20 minutes to set it up. And it's heavy in its requirement for physiotherapists. So we wanted something that was really quick and easy to do, so it takes 3 minutes to go between those sizes. The personal device is individually sized and you can't adjust that readily, and we can adjust it in the factory. So we measure somebody up for the device. It's built to align with their limb lengths, and we're unique in doing that in the industry. There's about 3 other competitors, kind of. Though all those competitors use crutches to balance. This is the only self-supporting device in the world, and the alignment of those joints is really important to us because we don't want to put any pressure on the joints. Yes, they do, yeah. Yes, you can. So most people will transport it in the back of an estate car. And so what you do, and what I did to take it here today, is you walk it up to the back or use a trolley like I did there to take it up to the back. It's quite heavy, but if you sit it down, it sits in the boot of the car, and then it's designed to swivel on the hip at the back, so you just lift the feet and turn it around. So it's actually quite a light lift. And we find most manual wheelchair users can do that themselves, actually. And then people will transfer into it in the back of the car as well. So they'll come round from the front of the car in their wheelchair, and then they'll jump into the machine in the back of the car if they're working outside. Yeah. Yep. So it's easy enough to transport around. I mean, obviously you would need somewhere. We talk about it being building code compliant environments. So most of the physios would be able to move it around in the trolley. Most physios, I have to say, right now are hospital based when they're using it, and patients will come to them. We say patients when it's in the hospital setting. In the home setting, it's users for us. And people who have them as individuals use them to different degrees themselves. If they have a low level injury or a relatively high amount of functionality and they can get into it, strap it on themselves, use it themselves. And some people have attendant care where they will have somebody assist them into the device, and some people are hoisted into the device. And the highest levels of spinal cord injury we've had so far is people at C3 who are on ventilators while they're walking. So you can use the device and walk very, very easily, even with very little functional ability yourself. It is, to the extent that it has to be. So you couldn't go for a swim in it, but you can spill a cup of coffee or anything and be okay, yeah. It's one of the tests we have to do. We have to spill a cup of coffee slowly over the user interface. Yes, ma'am?
Can you sit?
Yes, you can.
Is it just for standing and walking, or can you sit in it and then get up?
No, you can actually sit down. And most people get into it sitting. So you would sit the machine down on a chair, you transfer into it in the sitting position, and then you can walk around in it and use it. Some of our users will use it for 8 hours a day. Some will only use it for less than an hour, depending on their particular conditions and health concerns.
So you'd actually have to get out of it and then put it in a chair and then sit in it? You couldn't stay in it and say, I can't sit down?
No, you can stay in it and sit down, yeah. You pretty much use it as just as you and I might wander around during the day. Yeah, kind of an Iron Man. Yeah.
Robocop more often.
Can't fly, although we do know the guy in Christchurch with a jetpack, and we could do a 2-for-1 deal. Well, actually, surprisingly, in the airports, what I found was the last time I went through LA airport with it, you always expect trouble, and we used to get a lot of trouble when it first came through because it kind of looks a bit like Iron Man. It looks like some kind of bomb or weapon, really. And last time we were going through, and the customs guy went, "Oh, I had one of them last week. Yeah, carry on." So it's starting to become something that people recognise and understand, and we see that more and more as we get out there. You get some very strange reactions. People will say, "Oh, yeah, I've seen it on the telly." Some people just look at it and go, "Whatever." And some kids come up and they go, "I want one." Yeah, definitely. I think it's a crime that kids with cerebral palsy don't get enough time and attention. And I've seen that, you know, myself through personal experiences. One of the youngest child we've had in it was an 11-year-old girl who's a niece of mine who has cerebral palsy, a cousin of mine who has cerebral palsy. And she was amazing actually in the device, because we do this sort of spiel where it's a big thing getting in one of these, you know, it's a big emotional thing. And people go through all sorts of emotions. Maybe the last time they walked was a very tragic day and all this sort of stuff. You get the kid in it, the kid just pressure, it's just like a game. They just get in and they go, so I'm going now, you'll do this, and you do it, and she's gone. She's away across, come back, you know, she's off on her own. So the kids take very, very easily to it. It would be great to see them in it. This machine won't shrink down small enough because it's meant for 100-kilo adults, and it physically can't get small enough, but we do hope that we will get the time and money into the company to build a much smaller device. We can do it. And actually Cure Kids Ventures is one of our investors, long-term New Zealand investors and supporters for that very reason. So fingers crossed one day soon we'll get some kids in it. And that's only part of it, of course. This is the big heavy end of the technology. There's lighter, more assistive things that we can do to help, and that's where it comes into the pressure and the functional electrical stimulation and all the other things that we're looking at. We have very big relationships with universities here and around the world. Here I've got 5 PhD students this year from Massey who are working on technology surrounding this. MI, thought control and functional electrical stimulation at the same time, and they're getting some amazing results in rehabilitation, particularly after stroke, where you think move and you move because of electrical stimulation. And we have that in Houston as well, where we have a relationship with the University of Houston, and they have people walking around these things using thought control only. And the thought control I thought was really cool from a roboticist. Do something and something happens in the physical world is amazing, but what they're actually finding in rehab, that you get much, much better results when you initiate movement yourself. However, then that movement's enacted is quite different, but you get much more beneficial results, and the results are actually quite dramatic. And so thought control is something that we're big into as well.
Richard, could we see you doing this now? And I can give you this mic.
Yeah, sure. In it. It's much easier when I'm inside it. And I'll talk forever, so tell me when it's time to leave. Or coffee. Oh, just hold that. That's fine. Okay. Thank you. So this isn't actually for me. This is one of our engineers' devices who works for us. He has a spinal cord injury and he builds Rexes, and he uses a Rex. So it's sized for him. I can't strap it on, but I can stand in it and demonstrate. I mean, first thing is it's very, very simple to use. You push forward the joystick, you go forward. You press sideways, you go sideways, you turn, you turn. It's sort of as easy as that. Somebody asked about stability and falling, so if I show you, if I cancel when I'm up on one leg, hard to hold a mic and do as well, but we're balanced and standing here on the one foot, with the machine off the ground. And that's actually what started the lazy man's yoga. Because what we were doing was we're standing in the machine. All these beeps are Morse code and engineering speak, but we were doing all this sort of stuff and standing there at these conferences, and we were able to move around. The physios were going, oh, I could get somebody to do that, and then they could bend their knee, and then they were doing all this sort of thing. And it was just a nice, gentle way of driving people and controlling it, and they're supported, and it's very gentle. And we're even finding that people after heart surgery are using these. So when they do arterial grafts on the heart, they want to get people, they've taken blood vessels from the leg, and they want to get people up and moving the next day. They're putting them in Rexes to do it and having them walk around. So very, very simple machine to use. It takes less than 5 minutes for somebody to get independent in the machine. It takes longer for me to make sure that they're okay and that it fits, and they're off after that. Most people will walk for about an hour the first day, and it's that simple. You want to see anything in particular? I'll show you one of the favourite moves. Another sort of physio one, really. There's some moves that people love, and strangely, even with a spinal cord injury, complete spinal cord injury, that people will say, that feels really good. So that's shuffling. So the idea of that was going along the kitchen sink. And actually cooking is something that people do an awful lot, and if they're using it in the home space, because cooking from a wheelchair annoys people. The sitting down, the pan being at face height, it's dangerous, it's annoying, and so people actually quite often will do their activities of daily living. The sort of cooking's a really good one, where they can just stand in the machine, they're getting the benefits of standing, the benefits of walking, the benefits of those stretches, and they're getting a job done at the same time. Yes, they are, yeah. So you need very little arm movement. I mean, any kind of movement on the upper arm is enough to drive the machine. So as I say, we have people at C3 with a spinal cord injury, so they have no finger control, very little movement. It's more sort of almost whole body movement at that level. This is the guy who has this, he's nipple level, complete paralysis. So this is quite a low level for us. So some people have strapping that will come up a little bit higher, comes up just underneath the chest, and that's adjustable depending on the user, or in the rehabilitation machines, they all have that ability. And what the physios will often do, though, is they'll have people stand up in the machine beside a wall, and they'll take the strapping off, or take some of the strapping off, depending on the user, and then they'll have the user work along the wall, or they'll be catching balls, or doing exercises with the physio. So we can have the ability to kind of free people up to move in the machine as well, just depending on their particular levels, and whatever the physio wants to do with them on the day. You must have another question. You don't see robots every day, do you? Rex. Oh, Latin for king. It's regal. It's a nice name. It was actually the governor of the Reserve Bank who came up with the name for us. The last governor, Bollard.
Susan, I'd like to see you walk up the steps.
I can't do it because I'm not strapped in, but I can show you it. I can show you it doing steps. Sure.